Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And today, it's fast, it's quickly approaching, my friends. The moment that we've been waiting for since, March, April? Ever since the hiring of head coach Jerome Tang, it's right around the corner, and that is the first, albeit an exhibition, game for your Kansas State men's Catsketball team. So we're going to be giving our season preview for it, as well as going over some pretty big non-rev news in the soccer and volleyball realms, and then, of course, everyone's favorite, the wacky segment of the week. But the men's Catsketball preview is probably going to be the meat and potatoes of this episode. So let's dive straight into it. So before we talk about the team this year, I didn't put it on the outline, but we can talk more generally about the team last year. We don't need to pull up anything specific because the number one word that really comes to my mind is disappointing.
For last year's team.
Yeah, for last
I think
team.
that's fair to say, especially in the way that they would consistently find a way to build up expectations out of seemingly nowhere, all for it to just crumble when the pressure really seemed to amp up. I mean, I'm thinking back to like the Hall of Fame Classic, where we had two games with the exact same score that went in vastly different ways. And then you come back, blow out North Dakota, beat Wichita State on the road, all to come back to a game against Marquette, where they finally get a good student turnout for the game, all to lose at the very, very end, which was very frustrating. Then going on the road and beating Nebraska and doing pretty well, then losing close game at Oklahoma, losing a home to Texas. And then as I recall, that was the game where we had like 6 players.
Yeah, that's
The
when we
whole
had like
game.
6 players and Shane Southwell was the coach.
Yeah, I remember that because everybody after the game was like, Shane Southwell should be the head coach of the Kansas State Wildcats. And I was like, let's get ahead of ourselves. But
Let's pump the brakes.
I get it, but no.
Yeah.
And we start out Big 12 play 0-4, and then we beat ranked Texas Tech by double figures and go and beat ranked Texas on the road, all to come home and then have KU just take the wind out of our sails completely. And then it was just the rest of the season was pretty much just like that. Just massive up and downs and swings back and forward, and then really ending on a sour stretch where we just couldn't really put it together, getting blown out by KU on the road, a 1-point loss at home to Iowa State, a 7-point loss at home to Oklahoma, losing on the road in a admittedly controversial game against Texas Tech, and then just kind of not having a great performance against West Virginia in the Big 12 tournament. It was a game, or it was a season where there was always, it felt like there was a lot missing. There were some great pieces on that team, but it was just clearly just not quite there. But sometimes when everything was clicking, it was a solid team, at least on the outside, but just lack of post presence and consistency was what really killed the cat with last year's team. That pun was not intended, I swear. But
yeah. But yeah, it's everything you said, plus there were so many times, like just like you said, there were so many times that we had some wind in our sails, like there was some degree of buy-in, and then the moment they would get anyone to show up, they got students to show up for the Marquette game on a Wednesday, and then they just absolutely blow it at the last second. Obviously they got the support for the KU game. Then they eventually had a decent showing for the West Virginia game. And then every single time it fell apart almost immediately. But that's last year. This year is completely different because there's no immediate skepticism from the fan base regarding the head coach specifically. Because if there's one thing that Jerome Tang has done, he has reinvigorated not only K-State basketball's fan base, but K-State fan base in general.
Yeah. And on the element of skepticism, I think the only skepticism about him right now is just a healthy one where it's just we haven't seen anything yet. But I don't think that even then, I don't think there's people thinking like, oh well, I don't think he'll be that good, because I think that right now the furthest people are getting on Jerome Tang is like, let's wait and see, which is
Mhm.
reasonable.
Yeah.
He's definitely drawn more excitement than any coach I can think of
Oh
in
yeah.
my time at K-State, like not even particularly close, I'd say. Because I'm thinking back to hires that K-State's made since I've really been aware of it. And that's Chris Kleiman, Bruce Weber, like Pete Hughes, Jeff Mitty. Um, Other than that, there hasn't really been like major hires that I can think of. Uh, and just so Jerome Tang is obviously the biggest one there. He's come in and he's completely, as you put it, reinvigorated the fan base, and I think that's a good word for it, because there's more energy in the student section than there was even in different sports,
Yeah.
because he's down there on the sideline bringing guys to visit and getting the student section into it. Uh, Allegedly, ticket sales are up. Gene Taylor was saying something like they've sold like 10 or 11,000 season tickets. I will believe it when I see it, because that
Yeah.
would be basically all of Bramlage.
Yeah.
And
That's selling out
yeah,
Bramlage like every
and I
game.
believe capacity is like 11,000 now. It used to be 11,600, but I think they took out about 600 seats with the new Loge boxes they put in,
Mhm.
which is probably a good long-term strategy. It sucks, but I get it. Like
Right.
fewer people come to live sports. Um, and Yeah, I think the fan base is really excited. The only thing more that they could have done, I think, is get some more like really marquee non-conference matchups, which granted we got a really good draw with the Big 12 SEC Challenge for once, because we're constantly playing like
Ole Miss.
Texas A&M and Ole Miss. We played Georgia like 4 times in like the 20 teens, it felt like. Dean Wade had a game winner against them when he was a freshman. That was like one of his big moments. But then beyond that, you get Nebraska at the T-Mobile Center. Then you get Wichita State at home. That's actually kind of a decent game. Then Butler on the road in the Big 12 Big East battle. But beyond that, like even still, like those aren't phenomenal teams. Like Nebraska is like notorious for being the worst like Power Five basketball team. It was Northwestern for a long time, but I think Nebraska is the only Power Five or Power Six, whatever it is for basketball, to not win an NCAA tournament game ever. And which is just fascinating, because I mean, like, it's a lot easier to win an NCAA tournament game than it is like win like a national title in football.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting that they've like never done that. Like, that's not even hating. I'm just like curious, because like
It's
that's
just a point of
statistically very unlikely.
curiosity.
That's just
Yeah.
very unlikely to happen. Like,
Yeah.
but I will say Marco Bourne, he went on Bosco's Boys, so probably most of you who are listening to this have already heard it. And he was talking about how they really want to in the future um get high level opponents to Bramlage. And he said that right now that's the struggle, is getting home and homes, because a lot of those teams just want to play one-offs, or they want to do like at their place in like a neutral game or something like that. They said that they want to go out and get like blue blood level programs to come to Bramlage, which I really like that approach. I
Yeah.
love that they want to do that. Like, because when he said that, I immediately was sitting there and trying to think of who it could be. I'm trying to like rack my brain. I'm like, what, like Arizona, like North Carolina, Duke, like how high are they shooting here? And I'm fascinated by that approach, and I really appreciate that, because the staff, that is probably the biggest thing you can say about them, is they have done absolutely nothing but aim high and
Hmm.
exceed expectations. Because
Yeah.
K-State fans, this is not a shot at the old staff, but we did get used to lower expectations in recruiting and scheduling and performance and everything. And even though they did have success, it still wasn't like flashy or anything like that. And this staff is
It was
wanting to be
gritty.
exciting and gritty, and they want to draw people in with that. And it's a completely different flavor of basketball than I think we're used to. And that is, I think, what's led to a lot of the excitement, which part of that is just like a grass is greener on the other side of the fence approach. Like, we're just appreciating something new, but it is also an inherently exciting thing to want to be a part of, because if
Mhm.
it is one of those things, which again, looking at it through purple tinted glasses, but it does feel like something is being built that could become something really special. And if everything goes well. So I mean there's a ton of asterisks there. It's a long way to go. I'm not going to make any like major future projections tonight. We are way too far away because I mean Jerome Tang's not even coached a game. Like
Yeah.
they would be unfair to set those expectations immediately from like an outside perspective. But that was a lot of rambling to say I'm very excited for the season and what it holds, especially because we just don't know a lot about most of the roster.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, it's just genuine curiosity about like what these guys are like and who they are.
Yeah. Which that's a perfect segue. Thank you, Connor. We're going
You're
to
what it was on purpose.
let's go. We're professionals, we swear.
Yeah.
We can start off by looking at the roster, then we'll go over the schedule and our expectations. But looking at the roster, there are only two returning members from last year's team, which even saying it out loud now, after I've had several months to digest that information, still sounds weird. But the two returning members from last year's squad is Marquise and Noel and Ish Masood. Both had pretty good year, like okay to good years last year. I think Marquise was probably the bigger of the two in terms of impact on the team because you could definitely tell that he was in, that emotional leader. He kind of was lightning in a bottle, and that's kind of why he was our favorite player last year, just because of how he was. He'd have some
Mhm.
amazing plays, and then
He was
literally 2 minutes
very
later.
he was very unusual for a Bruce Weber point guard because a lot of Bruce Weber point guards, I feel like, were kind of unexciting. They were traditional, they were distributors, and they were generally fairly good. We had a lot of point guards I liked in the Bruce Weber era, for one reason or another. Although granted, Cam Stokes took up like half that time on his own, but um, yeah, he was a lot more aggressive than a lot of Bruce Weber point guards. He made a lot more mistakes, but made a lot more incredibly flashy plays. So and it was kind of a like an adrenaline shot at times to watch him play, and just watch him step back and fearlessly take like a 30-foot three and it actually works sometimes. Which if nothing else, I appreciated the entertainment value from
Yeah,
that.
because you and I would look at him and was like, why is he doing that? Oh, it's gonna take
Yeah.
more than that to impress me. Oh.
Yeah, he's one of those players that like color analysts love to like stereotype, like when they talk about like gunslinger quarterbacks, where
Mm.
they all have like the same statement where they're like the coaches, like when he throws the ball they're saying oh no, but then it like works and they're like oh yes, like every color commentator has like the same thing about like a moderate risk taker at like
Mhm.
any position. So
Yeah, those are the two people returning, Marquise Noel and Ish Masood. Outside of that, it's completely different roster. We're gonna kind of go through by position here, starting off with the five center. You have you obviously know more than me on this. I'll cede to you, but I'll at least say the names and where they're from so I can contribute something to this episode.
you are contributing a significant amount here.
Thank you. That's the nicest thing someone's ever said to me. The first one is center Jarrell Colbert, who was a transfer from LSU. And I remember him specifically because he got buried behind two future NBA guys at LSU. And honestly, that's a shame. That could have happened to anybody, but hey, it's our game now. So
Yeah, Jarrell Colbert is an interesting case because he was somebody who came in at one point. I believe the story was that he was like a 2022 recruit, but he ended up reclassifying to 2021. I believe in that first class, he was a five star. Because if you go back and look at like his scouting report from January of 2020, his projection is a first round draft pick. And he was ultimately a LSU signee, but Will Wade was dispatched of, I suppose. And then their entire roster was dispatched of in this offseason
yeah.
for one reason or another. But Jarrell Colbert reclassifies, moves up a year, and gets to LSU early, and didn't really get a lot out of it. It seems like he only saw action in 4 games, averaging 6.8 minutes in those games, shooting 25% from the field, half a point a game. half a steal, 0.8 blocks, 1.3 total rebounds per game, listed at 6'10", 216 on Basketball Reference. But on K-State's roster, he's listed at 6'10", 235.
I
So he has
believe
put
it.
on a ton of muscle since he got here, which would that would stand
Attracts.
true. I believe that because they've talked a lot about many players putting on a lot of weight. We'll talk about that more as we go. But Jarrell Colbert, obviously, a highly touted recruit out of high school. He was one of the first guys to commit to this staff as well. A long time. I say a long time ago. It was like April, but
Yeah. Feels so long ago though.
I know. Like sometimes it feels like it was just yesterday that all of the early Jerome Tang era stuff was happening. Uh, it feels like just yesterday where it was the um like everybody like kind of hitting the panic button because it'd been like a month and we had like 4 players on the roster or something. One of
Yeah.
them was Logan Landers, and like everybody like had no idea what to expect. But yeah, Jarrell Colbert really didn't play a whole lot. He only scored 2 points in the entire season, and it was his first outing against Louisiana Monroe in a 101-39 victory for LSU. That's not relevant at all to
That's a
this wider
shame.
discussion. It's just simply a fact, and I thought it was interesting, and you all deserve to hear. If I had to see it, you do too. But another more interesting note, honestly, like that is actually interesting. In his 4 outings, and 3 of them he had a block. Only 1 turnover and all of that. Again, really overanalyzing a super small sample size here with Jarrell Colbert. A lot of what we're going with here is promise, and potential. And so I'm gonna believe in that, but he's also probably somebody that's developmental. This year, it is my hope that we blow out a lot of non-conference teams that get him some development time on the floor.
Yeah.
But I'd imagine conference play, he's somebody that's gonna play like 5 to 10 minutes a game, probably. And I have no issue with that whatsoever because he's a sophomore and he reclassified. And based on what he did last year at LSU, which granted he was playing behind 2 future NBA guys, maybe should have taken that extra year development. But I mean, like that's in the past, doesn't really matter. But again, only played 4 games last year. There's just not enough of a sample there, other than we do know that he was a highly, highly, highly touted recruit. So like obviously a ton of potential here with Jarrell Colbert, but he's somebody that I think we're going to have to wait to make a verdict on until later.
Yeah.
It's very encouraging that he has put on so much weight in his time because he's listed again on Basketball Reference as 216 pounds at 6'10". And he's again listed 235 on the roster, so about 20 pounds of based on the other players' progress, definitely muscle. So Jarrell Colbert, a name that I think is more relevant for the future than this year.
Yeah. Then the other 5 is Abayami Ijiola, which, you know,
Perfect.
perfect.
Yeah, good
Uh,
job.
Everyone just calls him Bebe Ijiola. He's a senior. He transferred from Hofstra, and that's really all I remember about him. He's not one of the sagas that I remember more about.
Yeah. Hello, Maple. The interesting thing to me about Abayami Igiola, I just wanted to flex that I could pronounce his name, but he starts out at Stetson, playing about 20 minutes a game over 2 seasons there, shooting roughly 50% from the field in that time. Not really 3-point shooter, but did looks like make a 3 at some point at Stetson. He's going to be in his 5th year of college basketball. Granted, one of those was a redshirt season from injury. He averaged over 10 points a game in those 2 seasons, was a very, very good rebounder. His rebounding rate was outstanding. I will admit, I could not find advanced analytics for this. I would like to have them. I simply could not find them. I know that
Yeah.
they exist. I just don't know where. But average of 1.2 blocks per game his sophomore year at Stetson. Then he transfers to Arkansas, which the fact that he transferred to Arkansas at all is actually an indicator of how good he is to me, even though he barely played because he redshirted a year, I believe, because of injury. And then he played in 1 game in the 2020-2021 season. He played in 1 game for 1 minute, and I think he tore his ACL. And so he really never played. Effectively, he never played. in an Arkansas uniform. And Arkansas has been a really good program the last few years under Eric
Mhm.
Musselman. Eric Musselman has been able to bring in basically anybody that he wants on the face of the earth to go play basketball for him. So I 100% buy that he is a really good basketball player, and I'm very happy with this addition just because of rebounding. This is something I think that's something that the staff has really placed a premium on is for center they want guys that can rebound. Defensive rebounders that are athletic and can really get up there. Something we haven't seen in a while. Honestly, the last guy to really do that is McCall Mayween, funnily enough, despite how frustrating he was. That's probably the best example I can think of for like a true big that can really get up and rebound. For at least from the Bruce Weber era. But last year, his most recent play, 7 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, 3 of those offensive rebounds a game, uh, 0.8 steals per game, 0.6 blocks per game, 2.8 fouls per game, shooting 63% from 2 point range, 63.2 from the field in general, 76% at the free throw line on 20 minutes a game. All around, really, really solid and efficient numbers there. And again, I want to draw attention to also Arkansas because Hofstra actually played Arkansas. That's a very talented team. This was a game that actually Hofstra won against number 24 Arkansas. He played 29 minutes, had 18 points and 14 rebounds against a very talented Arkansas team.
In the
So
revenge game.
a revenge game for him. Maybe there's bad blood there. I don't know, but he yeah, did a number on Arkansas in that game, and Arkansas obviously is a very, very, very athletic team. Abayami Igiola, Bebe Igiola, probably gonna start at the 5 this year. Depends on how much center we're actually gonna use, because I think we're gonna see a lot of small ball and like maybe some Naquan Tomlin playing the 5 sometimes just to get like a freak athletic group out on the floor. But Abai Miyagiola, he's listed at 6'9", 230 on Basketball Reference. He's listed at 6'10", 220 actually. So he has slimmed down a little bit actually since he got to K-State. The strength coach had like some before and after pictures of him, and it looked like he had like cut like some bad weight and put on some muscle. So I'm excited to see what he does. I'd imagine he's probably starting as the 5 this year. I'd be shocked if Jarrell Colbert is the starter, but I'm looking forward to seeing what Abaya Mugiola can do this year.
Yeah. Next up is forward David Gasson, who is a Virginia Tech transfer. And this was another one, and it's a theme throughout all these transfers, this was another one that it was like, okay, this guy's based off of potential, at
Yeah.
least if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. First of all, he's a international player. He's originally from De Leer in the Netherlands. He's 6'9", 205. Spent a couple years at Virginia Tech. He's an absolute freak athlete for his size because he is listed as a forward, but has pretty good ball handling. Can play the wing, so he could honestly get out there and be a stretch 4 or the 3. Unfortunately, Casey Eziagu has been replaced as our stretch 4.
Unfortunate.
It is such a shame, but he despite never starting at Virginia Tech, played a lot. 13 and a half minutes a game last year, played in, I believe, all 36 for them. And got 3.7 points per game, 2.7 rebounds per game, with half of those being offensive rebounds. And then 0.7 assists per game, 0.6 blocks per game, shooting about 48% from the field, and then 26.7% from 3. So 3-point, not his game, but there was a video posted of him on Instagram. I don't remember who posted it, but it was just showing him doing very athletic things. And I was like, wow, this guy is very athletic. And that was one of the statements of all time. And so I'm very excited to see what he can do. He'll be in his 3rd year of college basketball in this upcoming season. I think he could be a sleeper to like really make an impact this year, because I think he's the sort of player that really fits into what Jerome Tang wants to do, where he's an unbelievable athlete, a very long player, like a long, lanky player. Like he's like a classic classic Baylor Bear forward. Like Jonathan Shamwa Chachua. Like I look at David Gasson, I'm like, this guy is like a copy paste of exactly what Scott Drew wants in like a 4. So
Which makes sense.
yeah, go figure. And so I'm excited to see what David Gasson can do. I think he's kind of flying under the radar right now because of guys like Keontae Johnson and Naquan Tomlin, Marquise Noel, which fair. But
Yeah.
David Gasson, I'm hoping he'll play some quality minutes. I don't expect him to start or anything, but I'd really like it if he could be a spark plug defender and transition guy off the bench and get some scrappy points and get great rebounds for us. Honestly, this will sound funny. I kind of want him to play the Antonio Gordon role on this team where he's just not taking a ton of outside shots, but his role is really to just be very athletic and jump in and just reach over everybody to go in and get rebounds and hopefully be better at offense than Antonio Gordon and just find his way to the bucket, get the easy bucket, um, and be better ball handling than I think most people would expect. So I like David Gasson. I'm not going to sit here and expect the world from him this year, but he's somebody to keep an eye on, I'd say.
Yep. Then next up was probably the biggest transfer, at least the most hyped one. That was Keontae Johnson. And we had an entire 20-minute segment about him on an episode. So we'll try and keep it somewhat short. I would say it was based off potential, but he kind of realized that potential at Florida. It was just a medical mishap that caused him to miss some time and then eventually transfer from Florida to here. But yeah, we'll keep it somewhat shorter because it was relatively recently we did like a 20-minute segment on him.
Yeah. The gist of that segment was pretty much because I remember we really did the long segment on when we weren't sure if he was going to end up here or not.
Mm-hmm.
And our big thing was if he ended up transferring here and reached roughly the same level that he was at Florida, that takes this team from a bubble team to a surefire NCAA tournament team because
Mm-hmm.
he is that talented. He had an excellent sophomore season at Florida now 3 years ago. And then he missed most of 2020, 2021 with a medical issue, and then all of 2021, 2022. So Keontae Johnson, he is medically cleared. He's ready to go. Based off of tidbits that have kind of been said, he is mainly working on conditioning at this point, which makes sense because he's been out of basketball for like a year and a half to 2 years at this point, at least at a high competitive level.
Yeah.
But I can't find the analytics on him now, but I remember I did find some at the time. And his big thing was that he had a great sophomore year and he actually got better when he was in SEC time, when they were in that conference slate. In 2019, he was playing 31 minutes a game, taking almost 10 shots a game, hitting 54% of them. 60% of his 2-point shots went in 38% from three, 76% from the free throw line, 7 rebounds per game, 1.6 assists per game, 1.2 steals, 0.3 blocks, 1.7 turnovers for 14 points per game. And then his first 4 games in 2020, 2021, he was phenomenal, playing just 20 minutes a game. Granted, some of that was because of his injury, shooting 64% from the field, 42 or 43% from 3. I'll give him that roundup. It's 42.9. 78% from the free throw line, 4.5 rebounds per game, 1.3 steals or 1.3 assists, 1 steal, 2.8 turnovers, 16 points per game. So he was having a really great season until it was derailed. His potential is sky high. He was, I believe, the preseason SEC player of the year for 2020, 2021. And he was honestly probably going to be a lottery pick in the NBA draft. He has such a high ceiling. He raises this K-State team's ceiling dramatically as well. I am really looking forward to seeing what he can do because he is the key to this team really reaching their full potential and becoming this athletic monster that I think they have the possibility of doing. But Keontae Johnson obviously is incredible. He will start. He will be a starter on this team, period.
Yeah.
He could probably play realistically. I mean, he's a natural 3. But he could play the 4, he could play the 2, and he could probably handle the ball a little bit. That's probably not his forte. He's not a distributor by trade, but he is athletic enough to kind of do whatever he wants. So other than play the five, he's just not tall enough for that. But I really like Keontae Johnson. I mean, which who doesn't? But I'm looking forward to seeing what he does.
Yeah. And we can kind of gloss over Taj Manning because he's going to be a freshman this year. Probably doesn't contribute too much. Then Ish Masood, who's here last year. So skipping ahead to someone who apparently has been the rumor is that we just got done talking about Keontae Johnson, who had the potential to be a lottery draft pick in the NBA. And yet we haven't talked about the person with the most potential on the team yet.
Yeah. Naquan
On
Tomlin.
Tomlin.
Yeah. He is the one that if you put your ear to the ground and listen for the tremors around the Ice Family basketball facility, Naquan Tomlin's probably the one that you're going to hear the most. In his time at K-State, I think he arrived at about 190. He's already 210. 6'10", 210. There's a highlight of him from the Southern Illinois air quotes secret scrimmage. And where he is 6'10", 210 pounds, and he takes the ball from the wing, and drives it as if he were a guard, and goes from driving and crossing this guy up with incredible ball handling, to going straight into a post up, and then putting on some post moves. He is an incredibly versatile player with elite level athleticism. He can do almost whatever he wants in the paint, in terms of moving around. He has very long arms. An unbelievable athlete, NBA level athlete. I don't say that lightly. He can step out and take the three as well, and is a really great and tenacious defender as well. He spent the last 2 years at Chipola Community College in Florida, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And he was really, really good. I cannot find his point. There they are. 13.77 points per game last year as a sophomore. And it is worth noting that he is in his third or fourth year of competitive basketball in his life, because if he had been playing it his whole life, he would not be here because he'd be in the NBA. And
yeah,
because he is that good. He's shot 52% from the field last year, 25.8% from the 3-point line, 70% the free throw line, 5.8 rebounds per game, 1.3 assists, 1.87 turnovers. Most of what Naquan Tomlin has to do is learn the game, but he is a natural athlete. He is he is the X factor on this team, I think, to Keontae Johnson's key. Because Keontae Johnson is the key. Naquan Tomlin is the X factor, in that he is another guy that if he reaches his full potential, this team becomes really good really fast. Because if you have Keontae Johnson, Naquan Tomlin coming at you, you're going to struggle. And I'm very excited to see what kind of plays we install for Naquan Tomlin, what role we use him in, because he naturally can play the 2 through the 5, I think, with his skill set. Because he actually has a really natural looking shot. His best position is the 4, but he could play the 3 pretty well, although that's Keontae Johnson probably. He could play the 5 in a pinch. He can play the 2. And truly, if we just felt like it, we could have him play the 1 and bring the ball up if we felt like it. There's no reason to do such a thing, but if we wanted to, we could. So, but I am very excited to see what Keontae Johnson does this year. My expectations for him have only been growing, which is dangerous because of how little experience he has. But there's a lot of excitement building around him, and I am simply giving into it. So I really want to see what Naquan Tomlin can do this year, because he is, I think Jerome Tang said it, he could potentially be Big 12 newcomer of the year this year. And if things go according to plan, he might not be here next year because he might be in the NBA.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with him. But expectations are very, very, very high, I think, for Naquan Tomlin.
Yeah. Next up, we've already talked about Marquise Noel. Next up is Tyke Green, so a transfer from Stony Brook. So, a transfer up from a lower level, but still someone who has a pretty good chance of contributing here.
Yeah. He's been this is his 5th year, so it was last year for Tyke Green. One thing that was mentioned about him at one point is that he's built like a linebacker, and then I saw a picture of him and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a linebacker.
Yeah, he is a linebacker. He started out at Manhattan, which fun fact, Manhattan just fired their basketball coach 2 weeks before the season started, and I think their entire team is transferred or something like that.
Yep.
But he so he started at Manhattan, played 2 years there, played the last 2 years at Stony Brook. His minutes per game have gone up every single year. I'll go with the two most recent years at Stony Brook for the frame of reference here. 30 minutes and then 31 minutes per game, 43% from the field, and then bumped that up last year to 52%. And then 3-point percentage, you see a drastic change. 30% as a junior, last year as a senior, 42.5, 42.6. I'd say neither of those numbers are realistic. I would hope for him to shoot into the like mid 30s this year, I think is what realistically we should hope for. Then 54% from the free throw line as a junior, 64% last year. Last year, he really just went off. Then went from 6.9 rebounds to 8.1 rebounds, 0.8 assists to 1.1, doubled his steals per game from 0.7 to 1.4, doubled his blocks from 0.2 to 0.4, and then increased his point output from 9.7 to 14 points per game. So Tyke Green, he's kind of another guy's flying under the radar, but he really took a massive step last year as a basketball player and only had to add half a minute a game to do it. And he clearly got a bigger role at Stony Brook and had a really good season. So Tyke Green is probably someone to keep an eye on to, again, have maybe an underrated impact. There's one downside about bringing all these guys. You have to replace them all next year, these like
Yeah.
grad transfers and stuff. But the good thing is that you have an unusual amount of experience for a team with a lot of transfers in a first year coach. Because I mean, a lot of these guys are 4-year transfers or JUCO guys. Like they're guys that are used to playing a lot. There's a few younger Power 5 transfers that didn't play much, but they're supplementary as opposed to the main pieces. But Tyke Green is someone that's another guy that's kind of flying under the radar right now. That keep an eye on him.
Yeah. The next up is Cam Carter, who I remember distinctly because Mississippi State fans were upset for two reasons. That's where he transferred from. They're upset because he transferred at all, and they were upset with the coaching staff because they never used him. And I took that as a very, very good sign at the time. That's Cam Carter, if I haven't already said his name. But yeah, I felt pretty good whenever, it's always a good feeling whenever someone transfers to your program and you get to deal with salt from the opposing fan base. Not because he was bad, but because he was good.
Yeah. Cam Carter, man, like you said, he didn't really get as much playing time as I think people wanted him to. He came in to Mississippi State as a 4-star recruit out of high school. He's a true freshman last year, 115 nationally on 24/7, and went to Oak Hill Academy. So pretty solid uh, prep school there. But Cam Carter, he comes in, plays in 27 games, but only gets 4 starts and he gets only 8.5 minutes a game. Shooting just under 40% from the field, 30% from 3, 45% from 2, 68% from the free throw line, 2.2 points a game, 0.8 rebounds, 0.9 assists, 0.4 steals, 0.7 turnovers. The big thing with him, from what I could tell, is that people felt that again, I haven't seen a ton of film on him, but he's a very athletic and bursty guard that plays better defense than I think that you would expect. And he did have a few opportunities to get a lot of playing time. His best opportunity came against Alabama, where he played the most minutes he had all season, with 28. He went 4-12 from the field, 3 of 6 from 3, made all 4 of his free throws for 15 points. And then add in 3 assists, 2 rebounds. He did have 4 fouls, but again, that's the most he played all year, so I'm not too concerned about that. He had added a steal as well, and then those 15 points. So Cam Carter, highly regarded recruit, just didn't play a lot. Mississippi State seemed to have a lot of turmoil last year. It's kind of the rumblings that have always been going around. So Cam Carter, somebody to keep an eye on, that could maybe have an unexpected impact. So I will definitely be keeping tabs on him over this year. Again, we don't know a ton about him right now just because he didn't play a lot last year. But or at least like substantial playing time. But I really do like him from what little we do know. And I'm excited to see what he can do here at K-State. And Let's see. Is he somebody that's like added a lot of weight again? He's out a little bit. Basketball Reference has him at 185. He's put on 5 pounds since he got here to 190. That's 6'3".
Next up is Anthony Thomas, who we kind of projected. He was a JUCO transfer from Tallahassee Community College. We kind of projected him as, the guy that was, solid depth, basically, was going to be his role, was going to be a depth player.
Yeah, pretty much. He is a transfer in from Tallahassee College, although he did play his freshman year at UT Martin. And as a true freshman, there averaged 9 points a game and 2.8 rebounds. Played in 22 of 24 games with 4 starts. So he really did have a good freshman year. There he was 37% from the field, 30% from three, was 75% at the free throw line, and was definitely the best freshman on the team. Led the team in scoring on 4 occasions. He did a really good job there, but he ended up transferring after the year to Tallahassee College, where he averaged 11 points per game, 4.6 rebounds per game, and then 1.2 assists per game. Shooting 42.3% from the field, 34.6 from three, and then definitely dropped off at the free throw line, 55.3%. Then added 1.2 steals per game to that. He is a really interesting player because he's 6'7", 190 and listed as a guard, which is fascinating because he's super tall and kind of plays like the 3, which is really interesting because he is basically he pretty much is a tall guard. He's not a forward. Like posting up is not his game. He has a decent shot from the outside, and I do really like his ability to drive. That's something that's really impressive from him. But again, he's probably a developmental guy that they're bringing in. I want to see his defense grow as well. 6'7", very long arms. He's impressive from a physical and athletic perspective. But definitely want to see more from him. But again, probably not going to have a huge factor this year. He'll be ahead of Dorian Finnister and Taj Manning, who are the true freshmen. I would imagine that they will be redshirting, which is a great position to be in as a basketball team. But Anthony Thomas will probably be last guy off the bench, honestly, other than the walk-ons. So I'm not expecting a ton from him this year, but he's somebody that could be something, is the best way to put it, I think, right now.
Yeah. And the last player that we're really going to cover in depth is someone who has quite the odyssey in getting to K-State. Because he's gotten a little bit close that's the guard from Arkansas State, Desi Sills. And, he got here either way, so I feel fine kind of saying is like it was a little bit of a sweaty getting him here, but he's here now, and that's what matters.
Yeah. Desi Sills committed a while ago, took him a while to get to campus, but he is here, so who cares? He spent the first 3 years of his career at Arkansas, then transferred to Arkansas State. As a sophomore at Arkansas, he averaged double figures at 10.6 points per game, shooting 42% from the field, 33% from three, 53% from two, 3 rebounds a game, 1.2 assists, 0.9 steals, 10.6 points per game. And then last year at Arkansas State, kind of interesting stat line, shooting really well from 2, 55%, but not so well from 3, a lot lower than his career average, 25%. That kind of, to me, indicates it's an anomaly, kind of the opposite of Tyke Green, who did way better than his career average last year. So I'd admit both of those guys, I would just hope that they end up in the mid-30s is kind of my goal for them. Not that they care, but 72 points or 72.7% from the free throw line last year, 3.6 rebounds per game, 2.8 assists, 1.8 steals, 2.5 turnovers, and 12.6 points per game at Arkansas State. He's somebody that I think we want to come in and be an experienced presence on the outside. He's listed at 6'1", 202 on Basketball Reference. And he's listed at, apparently grew an inch, 6'2", 200 pounds on our official roster. Good for you hitting your late growth spurt, Desi. I'm not really sure what to expect from him positionally. He might be a 2, although honestly, he could maybe rotate a little bit at 1. But again, I've only seen a bit of film on him. I think they had him playing the one a little bit last year at Arkansas State, but I think he'll primarily be a two guard maybe. I want to see really good defense from him. I think is primarily what I want, and I think Jerome Tang wants from our backcourt. Like Marquise Noel and Desi Sills, and like Tyke Green and Cam Carter. I think he wants all those guys to be tenacious defenders first and foremost, especially Marquise Noel, the ball hawk that he is. But Desi Sills, I think he'll probably have a slow start given how late he got to campus. I mean, he literally got here like 2 weeks ago, and we have our first exhibition in like 4 days. So my expectations for him will be low, but not because I don't think he's a good player, but because I think he'll probably need a little bit of time to integrate and get prepared. I say that he'll drop 50 on Washburn now. Could happen to anybody, but
Really could have.
I'm very intrigued by Desi Sills because he's another guy like he falls in the Tyke Green vein of guys who I think fly under the radar as experienced guard transfers from a lower level that do have intriguing experience and could probably find a really solid role on this team.
Yeah. So that's the roster pretty much. And that was a bit. So we'll probably put in timestamps for because this will be a longer episode. I'll put in timestamps for skipping ahead to certain places if you'd like. And if I forget, please be sure to @me on Twitter @ACEdward00 to yell at me. And that'll convince me to do it. It sounds like I'm joking. I'm not joking. But
I won't yell at you, Ace.
Thank you, Connor. But now we can talk about the schedule, and we'll try to spend a little bit less time here. But you open with an exhibition against Washburn. In fact, here's how we'll do this. We'll kind of combine this here. I'll say the games in order, then you just say W or L, and then maybe like a sentence Y. Sound good? Knowing two birds, one stone?
Fair enough.
All right. So Washburn.
Hardly counts because it's an exhibition, but if it's not a W, I will be very concerned.
Okay. Then the first actual game of the year is University of Texas Rio Grande Valley in Manhattan. There's a doubleheader with the women's Catsketball team.
Mm-hmm. I'll call it a dub. If you want an actual reason, I think there will be a lot of energy with it being the first game of the Tang era. So I got a W there.
Yeah. Next up is Cal in Berkeley, California, the November 11th. That's a Friday on the Pac-12 network. I think this is the first true test.
Yes. Vaguely speaking. Cal was just picked second to last in the Pac-12 preseason poll in what is already I'll say a bad basketball conference.
Yeah.
So we should not lose to Cal is how I will say it. I will say dub.
Okay, I'll agree. UMKC in Bramlage, November 17th. That's another doubleheader with the women's Catsketball team.
I will say a dub there as well. Low-key thought Bruce Weber would end up there as the coach.
It kind of did, yeah.
No, but that just kind of didn't materialize. So, yeah, W.
The Cayman Islands Classic starting on November 21st on Flow Hoops.
Yeah.
Rhode Island.
W. Which, to be fair to Rhode Island, did they make the
I think they made the tournament last year? Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm pretty sure they made the tournament and were kind of a bit of a Cinderella, but like didn't really go super far. Here, I'm gonna check their schedule really quick. I know this is taking more time than you want, but
it's all good. Hey, we're here for a long time and a good time.
They
the Aggieville Alleycats
did not. I think we're maybe thinking of like what? Oh, the Blue Hens. I'm
St. Paul.
It was Saint something or other. Rhode Island did not make the tournament last year. It was the Blue Hens. St. Peter's.
St. Peter's. It's either St. Peter's or St. Paul because they knocked off Kentucky.
They did. I think it was St. Peter's. Who's to say? But Rhode Island is a dub. Rhode Island is a dub.
And then Nevada or Tulane.
That's another one that should be a dub, all things considered. And then the last one's a TBD, but we're playing either Illinois State, LSU, Akron, or Western Kentucky. So we're playing LSU. That'll be an interesting game because LSU is kind of in a similar spot as us. And that
Starting
they've
from
got,
zero.
yeah, starting from effectively more from zero than we are actually, because they
Yeah.
lost literally everybody. They made an interesting hire because they got the head coach of Murray State, I believe is who they got. And that was a interesting hire because I don't know how effective that is because Murray State's been kind of sufficient uh between coaches. So I'm not sure how much of that is coaching and how much of it is actually him. I will say a dub over presumptively LSU.
Okay.
Um, but it remains to be seen, I suppose, because a lot of that depends on does LSU get it together.
Okay. So you have us going six straight to begin the year,
I will be concerned if we drop any of these games at the time, with the exception of if we play LSU. That wouldn't bother me.
huh? Okay.
We should at
Next,
least start 5-0.
yeah, at least.
Mhm.
Next up is the Big 12 Big East battle, which is up against Butler in historic Hinkle Fieldhouse. This one I think is obviously we're going to play LSU probably. That this is what I think most people could consider a bigger game.
Yeah. There's implications going back to the Elite Eight run with Butler, where we play that double overtime game against Xavier, and the players insist that if they had not had to play the double OT game, they beat Butler and go to the Final Four. So there's bad blood there between the fan base and Butler. Butler has regressed significantly since their all-world coach Brad Stevens went to the Celtics and was Brad Stevens and good. And also since they haven't had literal NBA talent on their team, a la Gordon Hayward, crazy how that happens. But yeah, they went 14-19 last year. I don't have super high expectations for them this year, so I tentatively will ride in a dub for this game.
Okay. You and I have so far matched on everything.
Good, fantastic.
Fantastic. We're a hive mind. Next
Yeah,
up is Wichita State, December 3rd in Bramlage Coliseum. I
I,
have us winning this, yeah.
I do as well. I don't know how much of that is homerism, but I mean, we beat them last year in a more difficult environment with a less talented team,
Yeah.
which I think is a fair starting perspective for the game. But I will tentatively at least say a W here. But they were okay last year. So I'll start with a dub here, especially because I think this is going to be a really good atmosphere for a game. If finals weren't literally happening like 2 days later for me, I would consider going to this game. But I will be dying on the inside instead while this game is happening. So while you're enjoying the Wichita State game, please keep me in your thoughts because I will not be having a good time. So
I, I will. And I'm assuming that Abilene Christian and Incarnate Word you're both going to chalk up as dubs.
I don't know. Incarnate Word's pretty good. Yes, they're W's.
Okay.
So that's actually I think an 11-0 start. I mean, wait, let's go back. 1,
10.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes. Oh, I guess I was counting Nebraska, which Nebraska is not that good. So
Yeah, so yeah, we're going to chalk that
grant
one up as a dub.
granted, a lot of this I think is the non-conference schedule not
Being
being
not
great.
good. It's not good.
This is not a strong non-con. I think if we get out of it with like 1 to 2 losses realistically, then that's fine. But anything more than that is actively concerning
Yeah.
because this is not a strong non-conference. Like Nebraska is like not a slouch, but they're the worst in Power Five fairly consistently, at least in terms of postseason success. Wichita State is okay. Butler's not great. LSU will probably find a way to be all right. Cal's not very good. And then the rest of it is games that we should win. So, and then chalk up Radford for a dub as well
Yeah.
to get us to the end of non-con. Sorry to skip that.
No,
But
you're good.
unless you have any strong thoughts on our game against Radford, the doubleheader against, or the doubleheader with women's basketball, I will take it. You probably think we're winning that game too.
And we'll pause there. So we have us going through perfect through non-con, and we'll wait to give our conference projections until after the non-con so we can reassess because at that point I feel like that's even more projection than usual outside of our non-con. So we have a perfect non-con
I
projection.
will. What do you think about the Florida game? Do you want to wait until conference play to do the Florida game? What do you want to do now?
Let's wait.
Yeah,
for
because
the
that's
sake
like
of consistency.
that's sandwiched in the middle of conference play. So I'm fine with waiting for that because it's just it's at the same time as conference play. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely. I'm looking at our non-conference schedule, and unless one of these teams really comes out of nowhere and is surprising, we should win all of these games. Um, Anything more than like one or two losses
It's
or one
concerning.
loss to a bad team, I will be actively concerned.
Yeah, I agree. So with that little non-con bit out of the way, it raises the question of what is your expectation for this season? Because
Um,
personally, I guess I'll sorry to cut you off there.
no,
I guess I'll kind of go first is I my expectation is at least an NCAA tournament berth. That is my expectation, and I think that because this roster has enough talent to definitely be a a team that not only makes a tournament that can make noise in the tournament as well. To me, it all comes down to how does the coaching staff handle its first year of coaching?
yeah. I'm in the same boat. Pre Keontae Johnson, I felt like this was a bubble team. I felt like that was realistic. Keontae Johnson, this has me thinking that this could be or should be a tournament team. The talent is absolutely there, and I think you put it well. Depends on how many growing pains there are with getting the team to communicate effectively. Because I mean, well, like 13 of the 15 guys, including walk-ons on the roster, have never played on the court at the same time, like during a regulation basketball game. So um, there will probably be growing pains there. The staff working out some wrinkles with their communication, their planning, and how they handle in-game stuff. That'll be important as well. Jerome Tang, first-time head coach, the college level. Again, we love him. We're very excited for the season, but again, this is his first time doing this, so we don't truly know what to expect from on the floor products. That's not like a doubt or heresy or whatever, but I, uh, like it's just a statement of fact. We don't know what to expect from him yet,
Mhm.
so I'm interested to see, and I'm excited to see. I'm really looking forward to that exhibition game against Washburn, but we will see. But I do expect this team to get to the NCAA tournament. Uh, that's definitely ambitious for a team that was picked last in the Big 12. But again, I can't blame people for picking us last in the Big 12 because we
No.
finished what like second or third to last in the Big 12 last year, and took an early exit from the conference tournament and really collapsed at the end of the year, lost almost everybody. And we have a big group of guys that haven't really played much. And like Naquan Tomlin, we love him, but nobody else in the Big 12 really seems to know about him.
Mm.
Keontae Johnson is this big question mark, and all you have back is Marquise Noel and Ish Masood. So it's hard to blame people for picking K State last. And I get why people like from other fan bases probably look at our prediction of them going to the Big 12 tournament or going to the March Madness as kind of weird or crazy. But from our perspective, we've heard so much positive about this team that it's almost like a no-brainer at this point for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And expectations are a dangerous thing, but nevertheless, we have them. And I truly do believe in this staff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the men's Catsketball preview. And so we're just going to dive straight into the next bit of news. So if you jumped ahead to the non-rev soccer news, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hope you enjoyed the timestamp. But we can go ahead and talk about soccer. And there are two matches, and it's the wrap up to Big 12 play. The first match was a draw in the Sunflower Showdown up against KU. KU entered this match with a 6-8-2 record with a 2-4-1 record in Big 12 play. As I said, we draw. Each squad gets one goal in the half. So K-State gets one in the first half. KU gets theirs in the second. The goals were scored in the 22nd minute by Kaylee Thornhill and then in the 51st minute by Leah Bayer for KU. And yeah, this was a draw was frankly all we really needed.
Yeah, it was important to just get a result in this game. And if you look at the stats, KU did really kind of dominate this game. They had 21 shots to our 5, 7 shots on target to our 2, 11 corner kicks to our 1, and we outfouled by 6, 14-8. Yeah, then we get that goal early in the 22nd minute. KU scores in the 51st minute. And that's probably really anxiety inducing at that point, because you're like, wow, they already equalized. It would not be too hard for them to come in and just add to that. 2 yellow cards were given out in between the 73rd and 82nd minute to K-State's Riley Baker and Avery Smith of KU, respectively. But K-State ends up getting the win, and this one a tie, I should say, a huge win. Draw. Why do I keep saying win? And it's that's exactly what the doctor ordered for the K-State soccer team. And a 2-4-2 in Big 12 play after this 6-8-3 overall. And that brings in the unless you have anything additional to add about this game, Ace.
I don't.
Yeah, that brings up the pivotal final match of the year for a regular season against West Virginia.
Yep. So this one was unfortunately a loss for the Kansas State Wildcats. They didn't score a goal. West Virginia scored theirs in the second half, specifically in the 74th minute. And this was another game where, it wasn't pure domination, being fair, but it's a loss is a loss.
Yeah. I was able to watch the first half, and it was honestly a fairly even match in the first half, I'd say. There were some big breaks and chances for West Virginia, specifically a breakaway where they kind of chipped our back line and had a runaway, but a great play by Wehrmeyer saved a almost surefire goal. K-State had a few really great opportunities as well that he just weren't able to convert on. West Virginia gets a goal in the 74th minute. Julianne Valorand rolls off the tongue.
It does.
Assisted by almost Jordana Brewster and Jordan Brewster. And then 1 yellow card in the 73rd minute to K-State's Jasmine Brown, who was really playing quite well from what I saw. Other players for K-State that kind of stood out to me, Bailey Nemechek, and then Kaliana Garrett in her short amount of time. Those 2 players, or those 3, really looked really good, I thought, for K-State. West Virginia slightly outshoots 11-7, and then 4-1 for on goal. Corner kicks was just 2-1 in favor of West Virginia. Fouls were dead even at 7 apiece. So again, this was a fairly even match. K-State sadly does not get the victory on the road. They play well. This was a match where if they had won or drawn, they would have clinched a spot in the Big 12 tournament, but they did not do that. And so their destiny lay in the hands of others. So the pressure was really on after this match to see the results of other games.
Yeah. But luckily for the Kansas State Wildcats, the Oklahoma State Cowgirls pulled through, baby. We're going to the Big 12 tournament for the first time in soccer cats history. Your Kansas State Wildcats are advancing to the Big 12 tournament, which we said that was our goal from the beginning of the year. So it almost doesn't matter that we're inevitably going to get smoked by Texas.
Yeah. And, Ace and I, especially me, we've melted down at times on the show about how it felt like there were times this year where they weren't really making a lot of progress, and other times where they were, and there was just this serious lack of consistency. And they finally make it into the Big 12 tournament again. You immediately have to play Texas, which it's
so tough.
That's our reward for finally making it to the Big 12 tournament. But it's regardless, this is the step that we were waiting to see. I think that was the goal for this year, going for the soccer team going into the year. I have, at least from our perspective, was make it to postseason in some fashion.
Yeah.
We weren't sitting here like make the NCAA tournament or anything like that, but we just wanted them to do something past the regular season, and they are finally going to get to the Big 12 tournament, and they're going to face Texas. And I'm very happy about that. There were frustrating results at times this year. There were surprising results in our favor at times this year.
Yeah.
And it's kind of all balanced out to finally get us 2 postseason to face number 17 Texas and number 1 in the Big 12. Stumbled a little bit in those final 2 matches. Probably had a shot to beat KU, but couldn't hold on. Probably should have at least drawn with West Virginia, but weren't quite able to hold on. But then again, they had that big win against Oklahoma, a huge win on the road against Baylor. So again, it's been up and down, head scratching results at times. Other times, really nice results. But if nothing else, down the stretch, they played more cohesively. If they did still make some head scratching mistakes at times, and frustrating mistakes at other times, they did at least finally make it to postseason play. And that is what we wanted, which is progress. That is what we wanted. And they have made progress, no doubt about it.
And that's all we ever wanted. That's all we ever asked for from the Dabini Cats. So as I mentioned, they are playing Texas for the opening round of the Big 12 tournament. So like I said, I don't have expectations for that, but at least we made it. We made progress. We made tangible progress.
That we did. That is all that we wanted. And it's something to build on at least. And a lot of the talent on this team is young, which is encouraging. Jasmine Brown is a true freshman, I believe, and she has been, I think, starting most of the year. And I think she's going to be really, really good on the defensive back line for a long time to come. Kaylee Thornhill really ended the year fairly strong, I thought. And she is at least not a senior, I don't think. She totally might be, and I could be completely wrong, which would be an absolute shame.
Could happen to anybody.
She's a junior, so
okay.
But and then Kaliana Garrett I've liked. There's been other bits and pieces where I've liked to play her. But yeah, I'm happy to see the team grow and take this next step in their development.
Yep. So congratulations to them. The next up is the Volleyball Cats or the Volley Cats. They only had one match. It was up against number 14 Baylor. This was a 1-2-3 loss. K-State took the first set 30-28 and then lost the next sets 29-27, 25-23, and then 25-23. This match was weird. This match was really, really weird because it was like a microcosm. Well, first off, the first 2 sets seemed like they never ended at all, ever. They were such long sets, but this game was kind of like the microcosm of the season where we had no consistency. Like we could have beat Baylor if we just stayed consistent and didn't pick the absolute worst times to just keel over.
Yeah, exactly right. The way that we've kind of put it is this team is kind of anti-clutch.
Yeah.
Which is it's been very consistent, and because they've found themselves in advantageous situations, and it just seems like they haven't been able to convert and stay in front of that. There's been a few exceptions, but for the most part, it's really been a struggle to do things like hold a lead, and even at times find a lead. Now, but there were still some good individual performances in this game. Lauren Hinkle had 50 sets and 8 digs, so really nice day for her. She also added a kill. Sydney Bolding was 7-14 in the attack department. Had 9 blocks total in the game. Had 5 digs as well. She had a really great game. Elena Baca had 47 attack attempts, 20 kills, and 6 errors to go with 13 digs. A really good day in that department for her. Did have 4 receiving errors, which is a little rough. As a team, had 5 aces and 8 errors, which is unfortunate. Mackenzie Morris had 18 digs and 4 sets and 2 receiving errors as well. Otherwise, Haley Warner had a really nice day. 8 kills on 20 attack attempts and 3 errors with 5 blocks. Then Katie Fernholz, 18 attack attempts, 5 kills, 3 errors. Aaliyah Carter, 31 attack attempts, 9 kills, 7 errors. That's not a great hitting percentage. Then Shaylee Myers, 26 attack attempts, 10 kills, 3 errors, an ace, and an error with 2 digs and a couple receiving errors. So there was some solid offense, honestly, from the Cats, but they ultimately just, again, defensively didn't have the greatest day. Mallory Talbert, Baylor hitting 524 on the day. Elise McGee hitting 325 on 40 attempts. Just it feels like defense has been one of the big issues this year. That and a lot of receiving errors. It feels like just defensive positioning. In my completely untrained and layperson eye, that's kind of what it seems like to me. What do I know? But it's definitely been a frustrating year for the volleyball team, a team that obviously has a lot of talent and should be doing better than they are. And I think that they feel probably the same, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So I won't harp on it too much because we have done it before.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping for more from the volleyball team upcoming. They'll have a big opportunity tomorrow or day of if you're listening to this on day of release.
Well, it's about to be tomorrow in like 8 minutes.
That is true.
Wow, we just really minuted this episode, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't date it, we minuted it.
Oh yeah, we have minuted this episode. We're gonna be pushing it to see if it becomes the next day by the time we're done. I'll let you know.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be the next day. But the next matchup is today.
Yeah.
Up against number 2 Texas. I have no expectations.
Yeah. I don't really either. I would like to see if we could. Let's get a set. I think that's a reasonable-ish expectation. I'd like to see us get one set or at least push for a set. Texas is incredible. They're number 2 in the country. So I'm not going to set the bar super high for them. But I would really like to see us put up a big fight against Texas. At the very least, don't go down easy. But we'll see. I'm not really sure what to expect. Maybe we have like an ace up our sleeve that we can deploy for this game to, if we have any chance of getting the NCAA tournament. Feels like we really need to win this. Either that or after this match, we need to win out. So
yeah. Yeah, and theoretically, if we were to win out, that would mean we beat. Hang on. That would mean after Texas, we beat KU, Iowa State, West Virginia, Oklahoma, TCU, Texas Tech, and Baylor. That's tough, especially that last Baylor matchup being in Waco. But everything else is doable.
Yeah, we could beat Iowa State, I think. We've already beat OU, so theoretically we should be able to get them again. KU will be tough because we already blew a game against them at home. West Virginia is a home match. We got them at home. We got them away already. TCU, I think we beat them. Maybe. I don't know if we.
No, we choked it because it was a reverse sweep against them.
That's
right. It was the second time we gave up a reverse sweep at home.
That's right. I was gonna say we either beat them barely or we choked away a match. I couldn't remember exactly.
It was a choke.
That's a shame. But it's like it could happen to anybody, but it feels like it happens to us.
Yeah, I feel like it happens to us a lot more than it should.
Yeah. Anywho.
Yeah, that pretty much wraps up the recap segment. Now we can go into the wacky segment of the week. And this week's question is, if you could have any K-State team play one game in any given place, where would you have that team play?
I have a bit of a joke answer. I want the baseball team to play at the Sandlot.
Okay.
Like,
no, that's a good answer. It's a very good answer, actually. You can say something else, but
beyond that, I'm trying to think about like great places to play, or like a place with a really good view that like we wouldn't normally play, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like maybe a football game at that stadium in Monterrey, Mexico, where you can see like the mountains in the background.
I think it's the Estadio Azteca.
I think you're right. That has like a gorgeous view at that stadium. So that would be a place. I mean, granted, like that'd be really annoying to play a college football game in Mexico, I feel like.
Would it be any more annoying than playing it in Japan in the 80s? 90s?
The 90s.
90s. Sorry, I watched a video about us trying to play it in the 80s, and that's why K-State and Japan.
I've been meaning to watch that, like the video where about how we have like bizarre beef with someone. Like
it's a very good video.
I have that in my watch later right now, and I'm planning on watching it like maybe tomorrow when I'm done with class. But
it's a very good video.
TBD. Yeah, I think I'll watch it tomorrow instead of study. So
All right. But so you're gonna say the Estadio Azteca in Mexico?
yeah, I'll say that for now.
Okay. I am actually gonna say there's this very I don't really have a good reason for this. I really want K-State to play in the Superdome, like the Mercedes-Benz Superdome down
Really?
in New Orleans. And
Yeah.
no, that's not because it was the national title setting. I'm not trying to make like a national title joke here. That'd be awesome. That'd be sick. I would accept that. But the main reason I say that is because I want a reason to go down to the Superdome because I've never been to a game there, despite the fact that, I am my second team is the Saints. First team's the Chiefs. But, I want a reason to go down to New Orleans. And I think that'd be an awesome environment, just a bunch of Cats fans going down to New Orleans. There's probably a great deal of debauchery that would occur.
Debauchery.
Debauchery!
I have actually been to the Superdome.
You
Uh,
have.
yeah, I went when I think I was like 11 or 12. I went for a friend of ours' birthday. We went to you know who I'm talking about, and
Yeah.
we went to the Saints game. They played the Bucks, and this was back when Mike Glennon was the quarterback, so they were
Oh,
terrible.
God.
And the Saints won
The
like 40 to like 14 or something like that. And it was pretty decent. The one thing I remember is it felt like all of the seats were like kind of far away. Like every seat felt like it was kind of far away from the field. Just because it's a very cavernous dome. Like it's like the top of it's just like huge. So like AT&T Stadium is like also very big, but it didn't feel as like cavernous, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. But it was still like a really cool place. It looks neat on the outside. It's kind of iconic. And I'm happy that I went. I'd like to go again from a like time where I can like actually appreciate it and like make like a lasting memory.
Yeah.
But other than being 11, but we'll see. But yeah, but that's a solid pick. I like that.
My other answer was going to be the Death Roomba.
Oh yeah, I actually considered that as well. Out in Vegas. I was thinking about maybe having the basketball team play out in Vegas as well. That could potentially be fun. I
Basketball in Madison Square Garden.
that could be fun as well. I thought about saying football in Arrowhead, but we've done that like several times actually.
Yeah.
Like we played like I think like Cal and Iowa there in the early 2000s. We played a few Big 12 titles there, I think. And then we played Iowa State there twice in the late 2000s for some reason, and we won both in very Farmageddon ways. And one of them is that blocked extra point.
Yeah.
And I try to remember what all happens. That I think it's the blocked extra point to win it, and I also think that that was like Grant Gregory Robo QB game. Which by Robo QB, I mean like he was literally being held together by like probably like pieces of metal and staples. And like Bill Snyder was really trotting out a broken man that entire season. And there was absolutely no reason for it, but
But he did it.
nevertheless.
But yeah. Do you have any final notes?
No, I do not.
All right. Well, first things first, happy Friday, Connor.
Were you waiting for that on purpose? Are you
Yes.
extending the episode? Okay.
Yeah, no. I wasn't extending the episode. I was just like, that's why I was counting down for 2-1. But that pretty much wraps up this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. We would have gone over with the outro anyway. If you if you want to contact the show, you can follow us on Twitter at Aggieville Alleycats. That's capital A, and capital C in cats. If you want to email us, we are AggievilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at AC Edwards00.
I am at Connor Balthazar, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store, where you can find such designs as the staff-approved Doomtan Clan, Play Sandstorm Cowards, and Neon Alleycats. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.